track that, I mean, literally millions of people are sweating to in the streets of Rio de Janeiro.
Right. Huge crowds.
Yeah, massive. But because a server somewhere in Berlin just doesn't have the right digital tag for it, you can't pay your rent.
Which is just a wild reality to think about.
It really is. Think of this like a secret, hyper-local street food that the neighborhood has loved for decades, right? And it's finally getting its own dedicated Michelin star category. It changes absolutely everything.
It really validates the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. You have this raw, deeply authentic thing that the locals have known about forever. It's the lifeblood of the community. But suddenly, the biggest institutional critics in the world turn around and say, we see this, we are officially putting it on the map.
Yeah, and for the people making that music, the infrastructure of their entire lives is about to shift.
Oh, totally. And for the DJs consuming it, the lines out the door just got a whole lot longer. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are thrilled to have you here with us. Today, we are working from a highly detailed 2026 electronic music industry briefing note.
Right, from a Miami-based publisher.
Yep, called 786 Music Publishing LLC.
And it is a really critical piece of analysis. I mean, 786 Music operates essentially as an intelligence desk for underground dance music.
Like a think tank for the club scene.
Basically, yeah, they track the tectonic shifts in what DJs are actually playing in the clubs versus how the corporate industry is, evolving to keep up with those street-level realities.
Right. So the mission for our deep dive today is to explore a massive milestone that this briefing note highlights. Beatport, which is the giant digital B2B marketplace for electronic music.
The absolute heavyweight in the industry.
Yeah, they have officially launched a standalone genre category for Brazilian funk. So our goal today is to unpack what this actually means for the future of underground sounds, the artists making them, and really the whole global clubbing ecosystem.
It's a huge shift.
It is. But before we get into the weeds of digital charts and metadata algorithms, we need to establish the guiding ethos of the source material we're looking at. Early on in their briefing, 786 Music explicitly states their foundational philosophy. They write, "The vibe is the only rule."
I love that quote. And that framing sets up an inherent friction that really drives this entire story. The vibe is the only rule because, we are about to discuss databases, right? Genre taxonomies and corporate music infrastructure.
Which are the least vibey things imaginable.
Exactly. Those are rigid binary systems. But the subject matter itself, Brazilian funk, is entirely about a visceral, physical feeling in a crowded room.
Right.
It is music born completely outside of formal corporate structures, driven totally by the energy of the crowd and the intuition of the producers.
You can't put a vibe in a spreadsheet, but the modern music industry absolutely has to try. Okay, let's unpack this. Before we can really grasp the business implications of a 2026 Beatport chart, we have to understand the actual sonic architecture of the music.
The DNA of the sound itself.
Exactly. We need to look at the cultural and sonic DNA of Brazilian funk. According to the briefing note, this genre originated in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro.
Right, back in the informal party scenes there.
Yeah. And it's a sound that has been one of the most culturally significant forces in the world for decades now. And sonically, the foundational sound is heavily influenced by Miami bass, but it is driven by signature rhythms known as the Tamborzao.
Yeah, and to understand why this 2026 Beatport announcement matters, you really have to break down that sonic history mechanically. Think about Miami bass in the 1980s and 90s. It's characterized by the Roland TR 808 drum machine. You have these incredibly booming, sustained sub-bass kicks.
Or yeah, that classic deep rattle.
Totally. And very fast, frenetic tempos, usually sitting upwards of 130 beats per minute, along with highly syncopated rhythms. It's an aggressive, deeply physical sound from the U.S. South.
Right.
And those vinyl records and cassettes eventually made their way down to Brazil, specifically into those informal party scenes of the Rio favelas.
But the thing is, they didn't just play the Miami records and call it a day. The briefing notes that the producers in Rio completely reverse-engineered the sound based on their own local resources and their own cultural rhythms.
And that is the crucial pivot right there. Because the favela producers, they absorbed that heavy 808 bass energy, but electronic equipment was expensive, It was difficult to acquire.
So what do you do when you don't have the gear?
Well, they started improvising. They took a specific drum loop from a Miami bass track, which is often cited as the Volt mix, and they just began chopping it up.
Wow.
Yeah, and when they didn't have drum machines to layer new beats over it, they used their own voices. This birthed the beatbox do funk, which is basically vocal percussion mimicking electronic drum kits.
That's amazing.
And what they were mimicking, or rather what they were creating, was the Tamborzao.
Okay, let's get granular on that. What actually makes a Tamborzao rhythm mechanically different from, say, standard electronic dance music? Like if you're a DJ looking at the waveform on a screen, what are you seeing?
So standard house or techno is built on a very rigid 4/4 grid. The kick drum hits consistently on every quarter note. It's very predictable.
Boom, 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 boom.
Exactly. Now, the Tamborzao is technically in 4/4, but it relies on a heavily syncopated 3/3/2 rhythm, which is often referred to as a tresillo.
Okay, so it's off kilter.
Very much so. It completely changes the center of gravity in the club. You have this massive booming bass hitting on offbeats, and it's layered with metallic driving percussion and those aggressive vocal chops we talked about.
Right, the beatboxing.
Yeah, it creates this intense polyrhythmic tension that forces your body to move entirely differently than standard Western club music. It's basically a clash of Afro-Brazilian percussive traditions with the raw, synthetic weight of Miami bass drum machines.
Wait, if this sound has been culturally massive for decades,
Right.
and has such a distinct mathematically identifiable rhythm, this 3/3/2 Tamborzao structure that literally millions of people are moving to, why did it take until 2026 for the industry heavyweights to finally recognize it as its own thing?
It's a great question.
I mean, why wasn't this a standalone category 10 or 15 years ago?
What's fascinating here is the sheer inertia of the global music industry's metadata infrastructure.
The inertia.
Yeah, because the formal music industry traditionally builds its categorization systems around sounds that are easily commodified and exported by Western markets.
Okay. The established pipelines.
Right. When a sound originates in a marginalized community like the favelas, it operates in a parallel informal economy. I mean, for decades, the Baile funk parties were massive, the cultural impact was undeniable, but the ecosystem functioned on local USB swaps.
Just handing drives to each other?
Exactly. USB swaps, WhatsApp groups, independent YouTube channels. It existed entirely outside the tracked formal data structures of Western digital rights platforms.
So the industry didn't recognize it because the industry literally didn't have the sensors in place to measure it.
Exactly the problem. When producers from the scene did try to upload their tracks to global platforms, the traditional genre buckets simply didn't know what to do with the Tamborzao.
Because it doesn't fit the 4/4 grid perfectly.
Right. A distributor requires you to select a genre from a drop-down menu. If Brazilian funk isn't an option, producers are literally forced to mislabel their own art.
Oh, wow. So where do they put it?
They'd throw it into global club or Latin or even like electronica or downtempo, which is functionally useless for a 130 BPM club banger.
Right, a DJ is not looking for a peak hour track in the downtempo section.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we are moving from the history of that informal economy into the highly structured practical reality of 2026.
It's the modern landscape.
Yeah. And the 786 Music Briefing makes it super clear that this new Beatport standalone genre is a game changer for the entire global ecosystem. I mean, this is not just a cosmetic UI update on a website. It has deep commercial implications for the artists, the record labels, and the DJs driving this sound today.
It's structural.
It is. But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay, let's hear it.
Doesn't forcing a raw, rebellious favela sound into a neat corporate Beatport checkbox risk homogenizing the very culture that made it special in the first place? I mean, are we just taking an underground movement and slapping a barcode on it for corporate consumption?
I mean, this raises an important question, and it's the classic tension of any underground scene intersecting with global commerce, right?
Yeah, art versus commerce.
Exactly. The fear of homogenization is completely valid. But if we look at the mechanical reality of how independent artists actually survive and pay rent in 2026, we have to look at the cold, hard mechanics of digital discovery.
Right.
Beatport isn't Spotify. It's a B2B platform. It is a tool for working DJs. Beatport categories aren't just labels, they are the SEO of the club world.
The search engine optimization for the dance floor.
Precisely. Without that specific checkbox, artists are functionally invisible to the global market.
Walk me through the actual mechanics of that invisibility. Like, how does a missing digital tag translate to a producer in Rio missing out on an international festival booking?
Okay, let's say you have a working DJ in Tokyo or London who wants to inject that heavy driving Tamborzao energy into their peak time set.
Right, they want that vibe.
Yeah. So they log on to Beatport to buy high-quality audio files, but they aren't always searching by a specific underground artist's name because they don't necessarily know who the new artists are yet.
So they browse.
They browse. They rely on the platform's genre architecture to discover new music. They click into a genre page, browse the top 100 charts, and dig through the new releases from independent labels operating in that specific lane.
And if Brazilian funk doesn't have its own dedicated page,
then those tracks are dumped into a generic catch-all folder. Like if a 130 BPM Tamborzao track gets mislabeled and pushed into a tech house feed, the algorithm serves it to tech house DJs.
who are expecting a standard 4/4 beat.
Exactly. Those DJs preview the track, realize it doesn't fit their standard 4/4 set, and they skip it.
Oh, and the algorithm tracks the skips.
Yep. The algorithm sees that high skip rate, assumes the track is performing poorly, and just buries it. The DJ who is actually looking for Brazilian funk never finds it, the track never gets bought, and the producer doesn't receive the royalty payment.
Which cascades into the live booking industry, right?
Literally.
If promoters don't see an artist's tracks charting in their respective lane, they just don't have the data to justify booking them for a global tour. So we aren't talking about changing the music to fit a corporate box. We are talking about building a new, accurately shaped pipeline so the original music can actually travel through the global economy without getting discarded by an algorithm.
The genre tag is quite literally the plumbing of the music business.
That's a great way to put it.
And the 76 Music Note emphasizes that key independent artists and labels are currently driving massive innovation in this sound right now, in 2026. This categorization dictates how their music is monetized.
So they can finally own their own space.
Exactly. It means a small label dedicated entirely to Brazilian funk can now dominate their own specific top 10 chart, rather than being algorithmically crushed in a generic global dance chart that's dominated by massive major label pop crossovers.
Right. They aren't competing with Taylor Swift remixes anymore.
No, they're not. It provides the data-driven legitimacy required to build sustainable international careers.
So the barcode doesn't water down the culture. The barcode ensures the artists get paid so they can afford to keep making the culture.
Precisely.
That leads directly into a heavily detailed section of the 786 music briefing that I really want to dissect. It's not just about the business metadata. It's about how the actual production of the music is evolving right now.
Yeah, the sonic evolution.
Because the document highlights that there is a highly specific 2026 production signature to Brazilian funk. And the geography of where this sound is currently dominating is wild. Like, it holds a massive resonance in the Miami electronic music scene today.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, it illustrates a fascinating mechanism of how globalized underground music truly operates.
How so?
Well, we tend to view cultural exchange linearly, right? Like, an idea exports from point A, arrives at point B, and the transaction is just over. But underground club culture is a continuous, iterative feedback loop.
Oh, it's like a sonic boomerang.
A sonic boomerang, exactly.
The DNA leaves Miami as 808 sub-bass in the 90s, travels thousands of miles south, incubates in the Rio favelas for decades where it's stripped down and rebuilt around the polyrhythmic Tamborzao. And now in 2026, it's flying right back to dominate Miami's cutting-edge electronic scene.
It's brilliant. And the briefing note details exactly why it's resonating in Miami today. The 2026 production signature of Brazilian funk isn't just a nostalgic throwback to the raw recordings of the early 2000s.
They aren't just playing the old lo-fi tracks.
No, the producers driving the scene today are combining the syncopated, aggressive favela rhythms with highly sophisticated modern club sound design.
What does that sound like in practice, though? Like, how does a 2026 track differ from those foundational tracks from 20 years ago?
It's really all in the frequency spectrum and the mixing. The modern tracks utilize surgical equalization and heavy sidechain compression.
So they sound huge.
Absolutely massive.
Yeah.
They are carving out incredible amounts of space in the low end so that the sub bass hits with the exact same clarity and punch as a modern techno track.
Okay.
And then the vocal chops and the metallic snares of the Tamborzao, those are mixed really wide and aggressive. Mm-hmm. They are engineering these tracks specifically to detonate on massive multi-million-dollar festival sound systems like a Function 1 array.
Wow. So they are taking the complex rhythmic structure of the favelas and marrying it to the acoustic standards of the global mega club.
Precisely. And that modern, ultra-heavy production signature is exactly why it is taking over Miami. The DJs and producers operating in Miami in 2026 are playing these intricate, heavy Brazilian funk tracks, and it naturally locks into the city's existing club sets.
Because it's familiar to them on some level.
Exactly. The ghost of the 808 is still in the machine. The Miami crowds inherently understand that booming sub-bass because it is the foundational frequency of their own city's musical heritage.
That is incredible. The music returns to influence the exact city that helped birth its foundational frequencies.
It's a perfect circle.
It really is. And because of this new Beatport categorization, when a DJ in a Miami club today plays one of those modern tracks, the digital ecosystem finally reflects it accurately.
Right. The data finally matches the reality.
Yeah. The DJ searches for Brazilian funk, buys the track, plays it to a crowd that intuitively feels that Miami bass history buried inside the Tamborzao rhythm. The crowd reacts, and the artist in Brazil gets the royalty payout and the chart data. The loop is closed digitally, financially, and culturally.
And the 786 Music briefing note really captures this precise moment of alignment. It's when the underground ecosystem successfully forces the formal industry to adapt to its reality.
Not the other way around.
Right. The raw improvisational energy of the favela, the historical debt to Miami bass, the surgical 2026 production design, and the rigid SEO-driven demands of a Beatport chart, they all intersect right here to create this massive milestone for the genre.
And returning to that ethos we established at the very beginning, the vibe is the only rule. It's a stark reminder of the hierarchy here. The industry taxonomy is absolutely vital for the survival and livelihood of the artists, obviously. But the infrastructure must serve the vibe.
Yes, exactly.
The vibe doesn't serve the infrastructure. Beatport can finally assign the correct metadata to it, but a database cannot manufacture the physical reaction of a crowd when the syncopated 3-3-2 rhythm suddenly drops the sub-bass into the floorboards.
It's an undeniable victory for the independent producers and labels who just refuse to iron out the syncopation of their sound to fit into someone else's generic category.
They held their ground.
They really did. They maintained the rhythmic integrity of the Tamborzao, continued building their audience through those informal channels we talked about, and just waited for the global infrastructure to finally build a specialized architecture around them.
So what does this all mean for you?
Yeah.
If you were a DJ listening to this right now, you know exactly the friction of sifting through thousands of mislabeled tracks just trying to find the right groove.
Oh, it's exhausting.
Yeah. But even if you just enjoy the music, the next time you are sweating it out in a club or streaming a new underground mix on your commute, recognize that the specific tracks you are hearing are directly shaped by these behind-the-scenes metadata battles.
You're hearing the business work.
Exactly. You are listening to the architecture of the music business functioning in real time. When a DJ drops a modern Brazilian funk track and the energy in the room completely shifts, you are witnessing an underground culture officially claiming its rightful real estate on the global stage.
It's powerful stuff.
It really is. You are hearing the tangible result of an independent label finally being able to monetize their art purely because a digital database finally added the right word to its search algorithm. The music was always legitimate, The system just finally caught up.
The barrier to entry was never the quality of the art, it was literally the rigidity of the search bar. Now that the barrier is removed, the flow of capital and cultural exchange can operate seamlessly.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating thought to chew on. If it took decades for Brazilian funk, a sound with massive cultural weight, distinct, undeniable rhythms, and a massive global audience to finally force the industry to build a dedicated category for it in 2026.
Yeah.
What other deeply regional, highly complex underground sounds are currently hiding in giant mislabeled genre buckets?
I wonder.
What other rhythms are dominating parallel informal economies right now, just waiting for the industry algorithms to catch up and give them their crown? Keep your ears open. The next massive shift in global club culture is probably already playing in a basement somewhere, completely untagged. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.